Today is Tuesday, November 11, and we're here for another press briefing to give you some updates on. They want to take two. Good morning, Jamaica. It is Tuesday, November 11, and we're here to give you more updates in relation to Hurricane Mellisa and the relief and recovery effort that is underway. We have a lot of very important guests here today, and I want to thank them for being here. I know how hard everybody is working. I want to acknowledge the Honorable Desmond McKenzie, our Minister of Local Government and Community Development. Also the Honorable Darrell Vaz, our Minister of Energy, Telecoms and Transport, and both of them are co-chairs of the Cabinet Subcommittee responsible for the relief efforts. I want to acknowledge permanent secretaries, in particular my permanent secretary, Dr. Kassan Troop, Commander Alvin Gale, Director General of the ODPEM, Mr. Jerome Palmer, Chief Executive Officer of the Toll Authority, and we also have some reps from the North-South Highway team, all other members of staff from various government entities. We have some representatives from our hard-working utility agencies, and we have JPS here with us, represented by their leader and President Hugh Grant, who you all know already if you watch these press conferences. We also have from Flow, Stephen Price, and we also have from Digicel, Stephen Murad, and they're doing such tremendous work. It's so good to have them here and to be able to tell them thank you in person. All the members of the media who are here, everybody who is watching, good morning again. I have some updates that I'll go through at the top. We did have a cabinet meeting yesterday, and there are some come out in the presentations. Anything that has not come out, at the end I will put them in. I will interject and just give you those updates coming out of cabinet. But in terms of some of the updates that I know individuals have asked about, in terms of donors, just note over 170 donors are registered on the relief portal. That's a lot of donors. So there are a lot of small ones. I know there are a lot of them that you see in the media and you see them on social media. Those are the big ones. But there are 170 of them that have registered and have brought in things into the country and have been supported by the government of Jamaica, whether it is through ODPEM, the Civil Aviation Authority in terms of getting the planes landing rights, and other government entities that may be working with them, including the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So that's 170 registered donors to Jamaica. In addition to that, we have 40 bilateral partners. That means 40 countries have provided aid to Jamaica, and we are so grateful to every single country, every bilateral partner, and the Ministry of Foreign Affairs and Foreign Trade has been doing a tremendous job coordinating all of that. 31 of them have already sent through their contributions. The other ones we're working to expedite those contributions. In addition to that, I know one of the questions we have is in terms of education. I'm very happy to note, PS, that 526 schools were open. That's a very significant number. We're very grateful for that. And we also know that many of the teachers and other members of staff, they have difficulties at home in many instances and even with their families, but they're still making the effort to come out, and we are so grateful to them and we thank them for all their efforts in working to get schools back. And those that aren't open, I know there's so many principals who are WhatsApping me about what they're doing, and they're working really hard to get back school, to get our schools open. And so we thank them for all of those efforts in spite of everything that is happening. In terms of donations on the Support Jamaica site, I'm just giving you those that have come in via credit card up to 8:07 this morning. The total was US $1.08 million plus an extra 53.218 million Jamaican dollars in donations on that portal. There are donations that come in directly to the account, and so at our next briefing on Thursday, I'll be able to give you the total that has come in via direct deposit to the accounts. What I've given you is just for the credit card transactions. Minister Samuda is not able to come to give the water update, but what I will note is that 72.6% of customers have had their water restored. They are working really, really hard. I know Minister Samuda this morning was looking at how quickly he could get Great River up, and the NWC has advised me that they are expecting to get Great River up by this evening, which is a great thing, because we know that facility is important to getting water into St. James and Hanover. So that's very, very critical. It's one of our biggest systems that we have. In addition to that, Minard is the other big one that they're working to get up. And once we get that, those two are up, we're at 85% of the population having water, which is a really, really big milestone, and I have to congratulate NWC and Minister Samuda on that. In terms of other updates, volunteers, there are almost 4,000 volunteers as at 7 a.m. It's 3,921 volunteers on the site. The ministries will be using them, especially as we get to the Clean Up Jamaica exercises. We'll be using a lot of volunteers there, and we will also use them in our own work in the Ministry of Education. And I should note, it is Youth Month, and one of the things we want to do for Youth Month is to empower young people to give back and to serve our country during this month. And so we'll be facilitating a lot of that through the Ministry of Education, Skills, Youth and Information. All right, the last update I'll give is the sad one, which is in relation to the number of deaths coming out of this hurricane. And the numbers that have been confirmed, and just noting these by the JCF, so they have investigated and they have concluded that these deaths were associated with the hurricane, and they have done so in conjunction with the JDF. And so the total confirmed fatalities coming out of Hurricane Mellisa now stands at 45. And I'll go through parish by parish. Hanover, 2. Westmoreland, 15. St. James, 6. Trelawney, 2. St. Anne, 1. Portland, 1. St. Elizabeth, 18. So that's a total confirmed of 45. In terms of postmortems, they have been able to conduct 33 postmortems to date, and there are some that they're waiting to do the postmortem on. And so that the confirmed number is 45, and I know those are 45 families that are hurting deeply, really, really hurting. And so as we look at that number, we pray for those families. We pray that God will comfort them. It's a hard time. It's a hard time to deal with the death of a family member, plus be dealing with the aftermath of a hurricane. And so I ask all of Jamaica to please pray for these families as they traverse this very, very, very difficult time. As this number changes, I will get back to you and we will give you the latest numbers that we do have. And with that, I will now move to the updates from our guests who are here. And first up is ODPEM, Commander Gale. You are first up.
Good morning, ministers, PS, colleagues from government agencies and partner agencies. Morning to the media and morning to Jamaica. The ODPEM continues to coordinate a multinational, multi-agency relief operation post-Hurricane Mellisa. And pardon me if I run through or skip over some of the things Minister already mentioned, but first and foremost, as usual, I want us to remember and hold dear the families of the 45 who have passed. we will remember them. 15 persons have been reported missing. The JCF continues their process of verification through a series of welfare checks. More than 130 buildings have sustained some level of damage, ranging from partial roof loss to complete collapse, while some 30,000 households have been displaced. Just over 182 communities have been officially recorded as having risk, primarily in Western Jamaica, bearing the brunt of the impacts. Currently, some 88 shelters remain open, with across 9 parishes, with just over 1,100 persons remaining in these shelters. While some persons have remained home, many continue to rely on the shelters as we work to restore access and provide restoration to damaged homes. I'm happy to report, however, that we are in touch with more than 90% of the shelters in Western Jamaica. In terms of community access, there are currently 2 communities which we have classified as marooned. To be clear, marooned communities refer only to communities that are completely cut off and solely accessible by air, where no road, be it double or single access, is available. These communities can only be reached by air. The 2 communities this morning are Petersville in Westmont, Duckets in St. James. The 2 maroon communities did receive drops yesterday, and I'm assured by the time I'm speaking this morning, we'll also do 2 other helicopter lifts into those communities. A rising water still continues to affect the communities of Content District, Comfort and Evergreen in Manchester, and Brighton in St. Elizabeth. Today, we'll also commence publishing the list of maroon communities and also priority communities. The ODPEM will commence publishing also planned relief supplies, such that across the nation our national efforts can be synchronized. I'll pause here just to indicate some weather details as we move into the middle of this week. The current weather forecast is for periods of showers and isolated thunderstorms to affect primarily sections of northern parishes, beginning this afternoon and continuing to Thursday morning. Isolated showers and thunderstorms are during this time. Additionally, gusty winds expected across northern parishes on Tuesday and Wednesday. The key message is here being that while significant rainfall is not expected, ongoing relief operations, particularly in the northern parishes, could be hampered by intermittent showers and thunderstorms through Thursday. These showers and thunderstorms may be heavy at times. Wind impacts may also impact the relief efforts. Weather conditions are forecasted to improve significantly through the course of Friday, with fair to partly conditions expected. In terms of critical services, the JPS is on board now. They will report. The National Water Commission measures, as announced before, just over 72% of customers are back with water. As at last evening at 10 p.m., some 34 roadways remain completely blocked, and the NWA continues to work to bring access to these roadways. Our 2 major telecom providers are well in excess of their restoration efforts, our persons back in mobile service. Relief and logistics matters. To date, over 80,000 care packages have been delivered to the national system, just over 500,000 meals. Since our last press briefing, just about 190 flight hours have been utilized to deliver just over 60 relief supply drops, and we will continue to press hard on this effort. The ODPEM continues to direct and coordinate efforts among government agencies, local authorities, the private sector, and international partners to ensure that the aid is equitably distributed in an efficiently coordinated process, thereby preventing wastage, leakage, or diversion. The development of a disaster relief inventory management system is in the final phase of testing, and we expect it to roll out across all our warehouses this week. This will aid in our accountability framework. To date, locally and overseas combined, 1,000 donors have inputted cash to our systems, with just over $400 million in those systems. The ODPEM, on behalf of the government of Jamaica, has also received into our stores just over $500 million worth of aid, with an over 80% rate of distribution for the relief items. As we move into the restoration phase or the recovery phase, we'll be pushing out more items from that package. We've also received some significant support and from our partner nations and organizations. I will refrain from listing them all here. The partnerships have generally provided aircraft services, field hospitals, food aid, mapping aid, search and rescue services, operational and logistic support, all of which are critical to the current relief efforts. In closing, I'll indicate that the past 2 weeks have tested our strength, resolve, but our unity and our discipline and compassion. LLL remains fully operational and is unwavering in its commitment to lead Jamaica's disaster recovery efforts. As we move forward, let us continue to support each other, stay informed to the official channels, and remain steadfast in our collective efforts to rebuild Jamaica. Thank you, and may God bless Jamaica.
Thank you very much, Commander. I see you've completely taken charge of your role, and it's so good to see. Just noting that there are some persons online who are asking about how they can get relief goods to ODPEM or to those who need it. Remember that ODPEM will collect. ODPEM can collect. And if you go on the Support Jamaica site, it does have the list of local drop-off locations. So if you have things that you want to get to those who have been affected, you can do so by using one of the drop-off has authorized to collect. And those are all listed on supportjamaica.gov.jm. And up next, we have a very, very hardworking minister, Minister Vaz. It's your turn to give your updates.
Thank you very much. Good morning to everybody, colleague ministers, permanent secretaries, special invited guests. So first of all, on behalf of the government of Jamaica, I want to extend deepest condolences to the family of the father and daughter who tragically lost their lives in the plane crash yesterday in Florida. The aircraft was bound for Jamaica on a hurricane relief mission. Mr. Alexander Worm was known for his unwavering kindness and his lifelong dedication to serving others. And he has been providing aid to Jamaica since began. My understanding is that he resides in Cayman and is well known by the Jamaican community in Cayman and has always been one who gives and gives and gives. So again, I want to say our thoughts and prayers are with their family and friends during this difficult time. I understand, based on confirmed reports, that himself and his daughter were tragically lost in this accident. And to state that despite the established process, we have landed several relief flights and would have landed this one in good faith based on its mission. As announced on Monday, November 10th, a new protocol has been implemented to ensure that all humanitarian and emergency response vehicles can toll corridors to deliver essential supplies, personnel, and assistance to affected communities. Under this arrangement, all ministries, departments, and agencies, non-government organizations, charitable entities, and international partners and private citizens engaged in humanitarian work are required to submit a written request for toll access to the Toll Authority of Jamaica. Of course, that will be publicized on social media and in traditional media with exactly what is required. Request should be submitted via email to the toll.authority@mtw.gov.jm or to the Managing Director, Jerome.Palmer, that's Jerome, Palmer, @mtw.gov.jm. I want to make it that we will be working closely with ODPEM, but we don't want to burden ODPEM. So the Toll Authority will take responsibility based on the criteria set by ODPEM and handle the day-to-day issuing of these passes. My understanding is that a pass will be approved within hours of receipt, and I'm hoping that the toll concession operators will have a system in place where obviously discretion can be used based on situations that may arise on the ground at the actual toll. So again, once approved by the toll authority, a letter of authorization granting toll-free access will be presented by drivers at the toll plazas for verification. Members of Parliament will all exemptions to support recovery efforts, and each MP will provide his vehicle details and the driver's name for the toll authority to be able to issue the access authorization. Temporary toll access protocol will remain in effect until government recovery and relief operations are complete. So I know that we reinstalled on Monday, and of course I saw the pictures last night of obviously some of the toll booths that were very, very congested because obviously of the transition, persons not realizing that it was reinstated and being asked to pay. Some didn't have the money, and it caused significant delays. So I'm hoping that that will be streamlined going forward today. Airports, both Sangster and Norman Manley International Airport, continue to operate steadily, maintaining consistent flight activity since reopening on October 20. Between October 29th and November 10th, the country's airports collectively handled 1,138 flights, including 499 commercial passenger flights, 369 cargo flights, relief and military flights, and 270 private flights. Of these, Norman Manley accounted for 578, while Sangster 360, in strong recovery and sustained air traffic to support both commercial travel and ongoing humanitarian operations across the island. I really want to stop to say that we need to process that. 1,138 flights in the height of the first 2 weeks of a Category 5. Thanks to everybody who worked with me to make this happen, the airports and all of the handlers and everybody else, Jamaica Civil Aviation Authority, Airports Authority. It's a feat that must be commended. One bit of good news that I just got while coming here, which I know will be received well, and must congratulate the JPS. The Montego Bay Airport will receive electricity later sometime today. That is huge because it will allow them now to go into full operations in the shortest possible time. Also want to say that the sea freight cycle has started. You would have seen on social media that picture of those containers passing through by Lime Key and Main Key on the weekend. That would have been the first cycle of shipments that would have arrived. I'm yet to tell you that it is mixed with commercial and relief supplies through containers. And I expect that to ramp up in the days and weeks to come, which means that our relief efforts will now be two-pronged, both air and sea. Of course, sea being able to carry much more. So that also is very, very, very good news for Montego Bay. Of course, if the airport is going to get back light, and I suspect that other areas will start to get back, but I'll leave that to the JPS. But that is, in the scheme of things and what I saw in Montego Bay, JPS must be commended on that feat. Telecommunications update. The Universal Service Fund continues its community Wi-Fi rollout for communities. Bethel Town and White House in Westmoreland, Huntley in Manchester, and Lucy in Hanover have public Wi-Fi access. Work is ongoing today in Petersfield, and by the end of the week, additional installations will be completed in Malvern, Silo, Hopewell, Darliston, Grange Hill, Montpelier. The mobile Wi-Fi unit will be in Lacovia, St. Elizabeth today, November the 11th. Again, huge for those affected communities being able to have access through free community Wi-Fi through the Universal Service Fund under my ministry, and we will continue to roll out especially in all of those affected areas. Today, November 11th, Starlink satellite units are being distributed to the Jamaica Defense Force, JCF, Disaster Preparedness and Emergency Management, Jamaica Fire Brigade, and the Ministry of Health and Wellness to support ongoing operations. The kits will enhance communication, strengthen logistical coordination, and accelerate the national response in affected areas. Again, here from their head office, working with us, and I would like to say that aside and apart from the 400 Starlink that were made available by Starlink head office and 200 that have been distributed by Medicorp, one of the charitable organizations, and another 100 given to government by other donors, we would have had 700 Starlinks that would have been distributed within the last 7 days. Again, I want to remind everybody the Starlink is of no use unless you activate it and connect it. And our ability to get more will be based on that. Also happy to say that I found a local supplier who has 250 to 350 Starlink in stock in Jamaica, which will be moving to acquire so that the full apparatus of Starlink that is required for all essential governments and NGOs that are working in this area. So we don't know the number yet. We're still compiling, still waiting on information to come. But the plan is between Starlink and the 2 telcos to be able to have those 5 parishes covered fully in terms of telco services in the shortest possible time. Flow reports as of November 10th, operating at 87% of pre-hurricane levels. Significant strides have been made across the island, and recovery efforts are also advancing steadily. Clarendon has 75% of the sites, Manchester 58, Portland at 48, and despite considerable challenges in the west, major progress is being made. St. Elizabeth now at 26%, St. James 25%, Hanover 27%. Overall customer connectivity is currently 49%, with 73% of Flow's fixed network facilities back online. Digicel has restored 57% of its mobile network. The fixed and business networks are performing even better at 89% and 75% restoration. Work continues in Hanover, Trelawney, and the Grill, with ongoing microwave link realignment to stabilize service in these areas. Again, Flow and Digicel working hard to make sure that they get connectivity, and I'm working with them to get some additional spectrum so that they can even improve their service during this time. Energy update, fuel supply. Very happy to say that most gas stations are almost fully back up in terms of the areas. On our 2 sites in Montego Bay that are still not up, but fuel distribution continues to improve, which is very important, obviously, for the recovery effort. Massive distribution networks remain stable, and they can confirm a new cargo arrival today, November 10th, which will further strengthen supplies. Also, I've gotten a number of requests for permission for temporary gas stations, which are being processed, which will be able to fulfill the demand in areas where there's no fuel service. And those will have also marine fuel for some of the fishing beaches that are back up in terms of ability to go out to sea. Petrojam repairs continue at Montego Bay Terminal, and partial operations are expected by the end of this week, with full restoration. Importantly, fuel supply remains at healthy levels between 2 and 3 weeks of storage, and over 20 million liters of aviation fuel are currently in stock. All aviation fuel deliveries are ongoing from the Kingston Terminal, which opens from 3 a.m. to 7 p.m. daily. So we are good to go there. JPS is here, so I'll give them their opportunity. But just to say that as of November 10th, 61% of JPS customers have power restored. The Ocho Pier and parts of the town center and the St. Anne's Bay Hospital and Fire Station are back on the grid, which is huge. So in closing, across every area, from fuel to power, communication to story is the same. Steady, determined progress. The government continues to work hand in hand with our private partners, the utility companies, the telecos and emergency team service across the island as quickly and safely as possible. We ask for the public's continued patience and cooperation every day as we're getting closer and closer to normalcy in these areas. I want to say what I've noticed, especially over the last 11, 12 days. The Jamaican spirit is alive and well. And I ask every Jamaican here and in the diaspora to continue to do your part, no matter how small it is, in the days, weeks, and months to come. Because with your help, the government of Jamaica will be supported in this huge task of relief and recovery for Jamaica after the passage of Hurricane Mellisa, a Category 5 storm hurricane. So it is not unnoticed. And the fact of the matter is, it is what is helping us to be able to do what we are doing. May God continue to bless Jamaica. God.
Thank you very much, Minister. Those were a lot of very comprehensive updates, and I hope that everybody was listening, because we got some very important information, things that give us a lot of hope. And it was so good to hear about the telecoms and infrastructure and what has been done by Flow and Digicel. Thank you. Also, in terms of JPS, thank you, thank you, thank you. The airport being able to have, the Montego Bay Airport being able to have electricity is a big deal. And so we do thank all the teams that are working, and they are working hard. They're working nonstop. When you go across Jamaica, you do see Flow and you see Digicel. I remember seeing some gentlemen with their Flow shirts on near to Holland Bamboo, and they were hauling all of that wire, whatever it was, and it was really heavy. You could see it was really heavy, and they were doing it, and there was just joy on their face. And I stopped to speak to them, and they were just so happy to be able to help where they can. And that truly, Minister Vaz, as you said, is the Jamaican spirit, where we're all doing what we have to do in order to support those who need the support. So thank you again for being here, and thank you for all the work that you're all doing. We are going to now hear from Minister Mackenzie, the co-chair of the committee that has been established by the Prime Minister. And he looks so handsome today. Good morning.
Minister. Morning, Minister Vaz. Morning, ladies and gentlemen. I just want to start off commenting on the aspect of the shelters, and to just also speak quickly to the fact that in the daily newspapers and in the media, specific reference has been made to a number of shelters, especially in Westmoreland, about the lack of basic needs, supplies, and lack of security. I just want to give the country the assurance that all the shelters that was outlined by the new Director General of ADPEM is fully equipped, not just with food supplies, but with the water. I must point out that one of the problems we are experiencing at the shelters is that during the days, a lot of people go to the shelters. They don't actually stay at the shelters, but they go to the shelters during the day. So when one goes there, they find this huge crowd. It is not because the shelters is overcrowded. We have been working closely with the RPM and the municipal corporations to ensure that all the shelters have the requisite needs as we get down into the thing. The numbers have reduced. Next week, we'll be putting some 300 workers of the Youth Some Employment Program to go to do an actual count of the numbers of persons in the shelters. And once that is done, we will take a determination how many shelters will be closing down or how many shelters must remain in operation. So I want again to dismiss the mischief that is being made, that the government is not doing anything about the shelters. It is not true. There was a big story about a rape case in Montego Bay following detailed investigation. In this room last week, the question was asked of the Prime Minister. There is no truth to any such story, and I want to put that to rest. The other area that I want to is the backlog of garbage collections and the debris as an effect of the hurricane. I had announced the National Cleanup Campaign, which I will speak to next week, not this week. But just to say that the National Solid Waste Management Authority have been engaging more trucks, more contractors. They have been working 24 hours around the clock in the affected areas to reduce the backlog of garbage collection. I am urging the country to be a little bit more considerate. You know, we are disposing of the waste. A lot of people now is doing spring cleaning. It's coming now to Christmas. So it's not only debris from Mellisa we're seeing, whole film out now, and it is going to be taking some time. I can only say to the country, and Mr. Gordon have said so, we are asking for some patience, some level of consideration. They are working, and I also want to make the point that based on the number of trucks going to our landfills, it is difficult for a truck to make 2 trips a day. The lines are extremely long. So we are urging patience as we continue to improve on that area. On the weekend, I was in Falmouth, and I must tell you that the issues in Falmouth are real. The municipal corporation have commenced work yesterday to clean up the market so that the vendors, and I notice a lot of commercial activities in Falmouth, despite the fact that they have no electricity there, but a lot of Jamaicans have risen to the occasion and has found means and ways of having commercial activities taking place in Falmouth. And so the instructions have been given to the municipal corporation to commence a comprehensive cleanup of the town of Falmouth. They have started, and since yesterday they have started to clean out the Falmouth market. And once that is done, the vendors who are on the streets will be allowed to go in using the car park of the market to ply their trade. And I want to make this point. There has been no increase in fees for any services offered by the municipal corporation by me as minister. No such authorization, no increase in market fees. None of the services that is offered by the municipal corporation have seen any increase in fees. As a matter of fact, the vendors in Falmouth will be allowed to occupy the market without paying any market fees at this time. So I want to make it clear that we are not in the mood of increasing fees. So Anybody who goes to the market and is asked to pay a market fee is an AI, not me. It's not real. And I want to make that point because it is very, very important, and I don't want people to exploit the situation. The government has not authorized any increase in any of the services for fees charged by the municipal. The purpose of the exercise of the YSEP workers, as I said before, is to collect the data, to give ourselves a better opportunity to do the assessment that is needed. The ADPEM, the Ministry of Labor and Social Security, and the local authorities have a vested interest in ensuring that the numbers of persons that we are providing for are the genuine people that really needs the relief supplies. Once we would have concluded that, we'll be moving to another stage, working again collectively across government to start to do the assessment on damage that has been done to homes and properties across the country. Some of that have already started by the Ministry of Labor, working with ADPEM and the municipal corporations, but in the parishes that have been affected mostly has not commenced as yet because of the real concerns in those areas. Final point I want to touch is St. James, Montego Bay. I will be meeting shortly with all the mayors from across the country to look at the state of local government and its resources. I want to say to the country that the local authorities have been severely hampered by Mellisa's passage through Jamaica. Infirmary in Falmouth, tears came to my eyes. There is no way that that infirmary can go back to that location. And I'm going to be engaging Minister Grange because Falmouth is protected under the trust and a lot of the buildings in Falmouth. But we have to come to the realization that Mellisa has given us a different light on how we operate. The fire station was devastated by Mellisa. And so, in terms of going forward, those discussions have to commence because we cannot. I spoke with Minister Tufton yesterday. Adjacent to the shelter is a facility that houses social cases in the hospitals. Over 50 of those patients have to be removed. They cannot go back to that location. So I am urging persons, those who have relatives who you can afford to take, please to take them, because it is just not possible to house people in those facilities. One of the infirmaries operating from a school. We are now looking to use the same approach to the field hospital as a means of relocating that infirmary when the time comes. I want to echo Minister Vaz's sentiments by saying that the government is working. There's no denying that we are doing the right things, we are listening. There are a lot of Jamaicans out there who was joining, but the country must understand that this is going to take time, going to take effort. It is going to take cooperation. And the last thing I want to say, I have to be controversial. We don't need the politics into the relief supply program.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I know JPS has to come, but I'm almost at 11. And for those of you who know, what day is today? I'm a teacher, you know. Class, what day is today? Today's Tuesday. Yes, it is Tuesday. But today is Remembrance Day. Only Minister Vaz is going to get the prize today. And I'll have a lollipop for you, Minister Vaz. So today is Remembrance Day, and that's why we're wearing the poppies. And for those of you who remember, class, Remembrance Day is a day where we honor members of the armed who have died in the line of duty. It's an important date celebrated across the Commonwealth. There are many Jamaican men and women who would have served in World Wars I and II. And so today is a day that we honor them. And usually, why is it today? It's for you to remember in your history books, look it up. The armistice came into effect, which is kind of like the ceasefire and the ending, came in effect the 11th hour of the 11th day of the 11th month. All right? So that was World War I. That was when it came into effect. And so every year at 11 a.m. on November 11, we offer a minute of silence. And that's why I didn't bring JPS up yet, because we're almost at 11 a.m. for us to do that. And it's very important to remember the role that we have played in very important wars like World War I and World War II. And Jamaican service were really important members of the armed service at that time. And so today is one of those beautiful days where we can celebrate, and if you see any member of the armed service too, it's an opportunity to tell them thank you for what you have done and for your service. And so we're at 10:59, and I know my other watch says 11. So given that it is 11 a.m. on the 11th day of the 11th month, I ask you to join in a moment of silence to remember those who lost their lives. Please stand. Thank you, everyone. And now you can get your JPS update. Hugh Grant, sorry for the delay, but it was an important one.
Good morning. I will give you the good news, Minister. Thanks for that. Of my base. I'll start there. Good morning to all ministers of government, our partners. I'm particularly encouraged to see my fellow partners in the utilities, Stephen and Stephen. Thanks for the continued support and partnership. Members of the media, and to you, the people of Jamaica. Let me first start by saying a tremendous thank you for your patience, your resilience, and your partnership as we continue to build after Hurricane Mellissa's unprecedented devastation. I'm going to go right to the good news as the minister requested. Right as the minister was sharing that the Sangster Airport in Montego Bay is expected to be restored to service today, the good news is Sangster Airport has been restored to service. And a tremendous thanks to all who helped. Today, 14 days after the passage of Category 5 hurricane, I'm pleased to share that we have restored service to 300,000 customers. That brings us to more than 64% of our customers now with power. This is a solid milestone given the scale of destruction that we have all seen. I had an opportunity firsthand this weekend to go to the western region, and let me tell you, it's a different thing when you see it in person than when you see it from a helicopter. It's truly a devastation, and our thoughts and prayers continue to go out to the communities, the families, and the loved ones who have been significantly impacted. We here at JPS stand for power as safely and as quickly as possible, and we continue to partner with local contractors and overseas contractors to help to facilitate that restoration. You may have recalled that I shared that prior to the hurricane, we brought in 71 overseas line workers. I'm pleased to share that since the passage of the hurricane, we have brought in additionally more than 200 line workers to help with the safe and timely restoration. In addition to that, we have also bringing in additional vehicles, bucket trucks, pole digging trucks that are expected to be here by this weekend. This will also be a key resource to help in expediting our restoration activities safely and timely. We're making steady progress in the East parishes. More than 95% of customers in St. Thomas, Kingston, St. Andrew, and St. Catherine are already restored. And right now, we are working on the unique challenges of various customers to facilitate restoration. The good news is there is no widespread community in these areas that are currently impacted. We are also making steady progress in the parishes of Clarendon, Manchester, Portland, St. Mary, and St. Anne, restoring critical services, including hospitals, water pumps, town centers, and key economic zones. We heard the minister shared that we are now in St. Anne. We were able to restore power to St. Anne's Bay Hospital. We were able to restore power to Ocheria Pier, to Duns River, to Ocheria, to the infirmary in Prairie. This strategic restoration is not by chance, it's intentional and aligns with our overall restoration strategy. Now, attacking the hardest hit areas in the Western Jamaica is a challenge, however, we're on it. Because of the extent of the devastation in the Western parishes, this is much more than repair and restore. It's a redesign and rebuild of our facilities. We have seen whereby landslides have caused poles and other infrastructure to be significantly damaged, and frankly, we have to now reroute some of our facilities and redesign to facilitate restoration. The good news is we're making progress. Our strategy, critical services like hospitals and water pumps and town centers in these key economic zones. Within the next 2 weeks, power will be in Hanover and Westmoreland. I heard Minister Mackenzie refer to what he's seen in Falmouth and Trelawney. Minister Mackenzie, this week, power will be in Trelawney. We will have power in Falmouth Town, Falmouth Hospital, and also the pier, whereby we're supporting the return of cruise ships to that particular pier. We are already in the parish of St. Elizabeth, having restored Junction and Southfield and some nearby communities. We did this by doing some creative things on the distribution system to facilitate St. Elizabeth. There is, however, a limitation to that, as we have built out in St. Elizabeth to a stage now whereby to go further, we would need the critical high voltage transmission to be restored. That has been significantly damaged. However, we continue to work that. We are already in St. James, as you heard mentioned. Service was restored earlier this week to Cornwall Regional Hospital. We have also restored some significant NWC pumps in the parish of St. James. The Catherine Mount and the Reading NWC pumps are now in service. We have also restored the Fairview Shopping Center and the Fairview community in St. James, so those people now are seeing the light. As of today, we heard whereby we restored the airport. The good news is also, by the end of today, we restore power to the Freeport in St. James, bringing power to the BPOs and stimulating the economic activity in that particular parish. Thank you, Minister. Another good news to share. Since we have been here this morning, power has also been restored to the hip strip in St. James. We know that those without electricity is asking the question, how soon will I be restored? I understand the inconvenience when there is no power. Some of our very workers here at JPS are part of the very communities that are significantly impacted. So I understand it. I get it. But be reassured that we are committed to be steadfast and strategic in our restoration activities. We are making progress in advancing our damage assessments. Frankly, some communities, we had limited or restricted access. That is now improving. So we'll only make greater progress with our damage assessments. As we make greater progress with our damage assessments, by the end of this week, I will be giving you more detailed updates in terms of restoration timelines and parishes and communities. My fellow Jamaicans, let me reassure you that JPS will not stop until we restore every community, every customer, and every business at this moment in time. Our teams are working 24/7, 7 days a week, under challenging conditions, frankly, in rain, mud, to safely and timely restore our customers. To our customers, to our partners, to the people of Jamaica, thank you for standing with us at this unprecedented time. Together, we are building back a stronger Jamaica. Thank you very much.
Thank you. You notice I didn't stand up this time, Hugh. Hi, you're giving us good news. So when you come with good news, you get all the time you want. All right, thank you. And of course, we all know when JPS is back up, our water systems can come back up, and Flow and Digicel can get to have their service restored. And so we're all very happy for all that hard work that is happening. I just have two quick updates from our cabinet discussions, and one is actually sort of an answer to a question that's been sent in by a journalist about the traffic and the fact that there is so much congestion that's coming from persons going to find their families and friends in St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland and causing the tremendous traffic. In Cabinet, we did discuss it, and one thing that's being looked at, and there is not a final decision on, we're actually exploring the use of curfews in Holland Bamboo. If you see it, there are parts of it that's single lane, that does cause a lot of congestion. The teams have to go in and clear away all of that bamboo. That cannot happen unless we have the space and the area clear for us to do that. And there are other roads that we do need that to have no cars on it for a period of time overnight. And so we're exploring having some periods overnight where we will not have traffic flowing in the areas so that that needed work can be done. But once that decision is taken, we will come back to you and let you know which roads, which areas would be affected so that we can clear things out so that you have smoother passage towards St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. So that, look out for more information on that at our next press briefing this week. In addition of discussions around temporary housing, there are several individuals and families that have been displaced because of the hurricane. Now we have them in shelters, but that's not the best facility. And I've seen children in the shelters running around, and it's not the best environment. And so the government is looking at temporary housing facilities that can really honor the dignity of these people, because you want to think about it. You know, if we were in the same position, we would want to have a facility that we felt honored our dignity. And so whatever we want to do for ourselves is what we want to do for other people. And so as we're doing these discussions in cabinet, we are looking at something that is good for people, not just, you know, throwing up something for individuals to go. And so those conversations are ongoing. We've already gotten some of what different options there are around the world. We're getting some international support in terms of what has worked, what has been used elsewhere. And so we're working through that. We do have cabinet continuing on Thursday and Friday, and so we will be looking at that and getting more information to you on the temporary housing solutions. The other thing that I needed to point out before we get to the questions was the National Days of Prayer. And the Ministry of Culture has noted that the National Days of Prayer will be held on Saturday, November 15, that's this Saturday, and Sunday, November 16. And this came out of a meeting with religious leaders where a national religious and faith-based hurricane task force was set up. We're a praying country, and we know prayer works. And so this was very important, and you will get some more details on the national will happen this weekend from Minister Grange. All right, so we're going to now open up to the questions from our media partners who are here. And I'm just checking if there are any others online. All right.
Morning, Dion Jackson, TBJ. First question, we heard the death toll and the missing. Is there any estimate, though, of how many other deaths are being investigated to ascertain whether or not they're connected to the hurricane? Also, there's been a suggestion to pass purpose-built legislation to frame the recovery effort. Is Cabinet giving any consideration to that? Third, continuing to ask about the Independent Oversight Committee. Last press conference, you told me Cabinet was continuing to talk about it, and my first to do with proactive disclosure. Why isn't there some kind of mechanism via online, website, whatever, to give real-time information in terms of the recovery effort? Money coming in, for instance, expenditure, things like shelters, recovery drops, relief drops, I beg your pardon, all that kind of information, JPS, NWC, all of that could be wrapped in so that anyone can access the information, as opposed to this very tightly curated way of delivering information via the press conferences that's happening now. And for clarity, I'm not saying don't have the press conferences, I'm saying in addition to.
Yeah. All right, those were several questions. I don't think I got all of them written down. But in terms of the oversight body, there is going to be an oversight body, and I should let you know that yesterday in Cabinet, we were looking at the overarching governance framework, what has happened globally. So our international partners were there with us, including the World Bank, looking at what has worked globally. Because one of the things you want is to make sure that whatever we do in Jamaica, we don't have to reinvent the wheel. We had an office after Hurricane Ivan that worked. We also have what has happened overseas, and we're looking at what it could look like in Jamaica. And I think Cabinet indicatively approved a structure that has a partnership council as that main body, but we're going to be continuing to discuss it some more. So, but whatever we do, there is going to be an oversight mechanism that's made up of civil society, the opposition, and the church as a part of that oversight. In terms of proactive disclosure, I think you are correct in terms of the financial intake, and this is something that we need to note. We're very transparent in terms of Support Jamaica and what's coming in through Support Jamaica. I give those numbers when I come here. There are lots of other donations that are coming in that go directly to other donors. There's a lot of money coming to the country. We don't have sight of all of that. What we have sight of and that we're giving you is what comes into the government of Jamaica and into ODPEM. So all of that we get through ODPEM, all of that is being provided. So I've given you the credit card ones. On Thursday or Friday when we have our next press conference, you'll get the direct deposits into the account. That's what we have. And then at ODPEM, ODPEM also has, whenever goods are sent in care of ODPEM from any donor and it's cleared, they have that inventory management of that. But of course, a lot of goods do come in, and it's not for ODPEM's distribution. It's for Food for the Poor or GEM or one of the that's separate. And so we can give you everything from government, and I do agree with you that we can put some more information that's more readily available to everyone. There was something else you asked.
Yeah, but just before I go on, and just to be clear though, Minister, I was also asking for broader information. So
Yes, and from the telecoms and so on.
We've
yes.
been asking for ODPEM, for
yes.
instance.
And I think Commander said he will start to give you the communities now.
Online, Minister,
Yes.
so
Yes.
everybody can access. I asked if Cabinet is considering purpose-built legislation.
Yes, we are looking at purpose-built legislation. And if you look at the recovery efforts that had happened in other countries that had anything of this magnitude, there would have been a special office set up. It would have had specific legislation towards it, looking at procurement. You know, in our jurisdiction, in this country, procurement takes forever. I mean, we're trying in the Ministry of Education to do some procurements and they're taking years. Reconstructing Jamaica, it cannot take years. And so we're going to have to be very, very careful in defining what rules apply, what don't, and how we still have oversight. And so that is being worked on, and we believe in the next week or two, we'll have a submission in Cabinet, before Cabinet, to approve the drafting instructions for that special piece of legislation.
And finally, if there's any estimate of how many deaths, other deaths are being investigated.
I have that one for you. Under investigation, nine other ones.
Good morning, Jerome Williams from the Jamaica Observer. You mentioned about the consideration for temporary housing.
Yes.
My question is there a reason why that wasn't considered earlier, seeing that people would have been homeless for 2 weeks and counting? And also, is there a potential timeline that is being discussed as to when we'll start to see these? Question for Commander Gill. You mentioned that there is projected rainfall started today in parishes in the north. Is there any consideration for any plans as it relates to people who are still homeless and people who are in flood-prone areas?
All right, in terms of the housing question, I think the Cabinet has moved very quickly in terms of housing. The first thing you have to do is to do your assessment. You need to know how many people are affected. You need to know what the level of damage is. And so that is actually being done right now. So we have teams out that are doing the damage assessments. Some people can recover. And when you go across Jamaica, you see that spirit. There are persons who are, getting their zinc, finding back the zinc and putting it back on. And you have others who are doing temporary structures. And if you look at the numbers in the shelters, the official numbers, you see that those have been coming down. For us as government, we understand that there is a problem. Some people are working really hard to help themselves, and some can't. And you have to have that number of those who need the temporary facilities. You also need to know what size. Is it mainly single people? Is it big families? Some homes that have been destroyed may have had 3 or 4 families living on that one piece of property. So you have to do the assessments. And so what we've done now is to start to get quotations on a range of different kind of solutions for, maybe an elderly person who's living by herself versus a family that has several people in the home versus one that's more communal in living. And so we have those quotations, and we've been looking at what's the fastest way. And remember I spoke about dignity. You don't want, as we would say in Jamaica, you don't want any kind of solution. You will feel okay going into, and that they feel good about themselves. You don't want to just have them feel like they're just a charity case. That's not what we're about. We're about giving people decent houses. And so we're trying to marry that with how quickly it can be manufactured. And so I think we have some solutions that can be delivered to Jamaica within 30 days. And you want something that isn't going to fall apart when a heavy gust of wind comes or rain falls. So that's also important. I have heard people speak about tents. I mean, that is obviously something that every country that's gone through this kind of disaster has looked at. We've looked at it too, but as I said, we want to make sure that whatever we do is semi-permanent and that is actually structurally sound for those families to go in. Odpem, you have a question too. Yes.
So I won't add to what, but what I'll say is that we would have been monitoring the cold front coming from the north and a system that was coming from the south since last Thursday. And my direction to the various NGOs and government agencies was to cause for the roughly 45,000 tarpaulins on island, as at last week Thursday, to be distributed. More than 80% of those have been distributed, particularly because we're expecting this event to occur. So immediate shelter needs, and then we move to the more long-term matters that Mellisa spoke of a few seconds ago.
And also, I should just note that there is a lot of thinking happening, because this morning I would have seen in one of our groups that we have that we were pre-positioning some food supplies to areas where there is a risk of them being cut off again because of the rainfall that's coming. So there's concern about landslide. And so today we actually have helicopters out just in case it happens. And so we're doing the best we can in terms of anticipating what's going to happen. But you did mention the flooding too. And I'm going to try to get someone from one of our geology teams to come in, because the aquifers are full underground. And so there are some communities that are seeing flooding because of that. And there are other flood-prone areas that we know that the aquifers are really overfull, and they may actually start to see rising waters in those areas. And so we're going to give you some more information on that, because that's something we're also monitoring. All right. Where is our next question?
Hi, good morning.
Good morning.
Abigail Bartley from Nationwide News. I have two questions.
I was going to say, you don't look like Mahiri.
I have two questions,
Sure.
one for Commander Gale and one for you, Minister Morris Dixon.
Yeah.
Gale, you mentioned that you've received just over $400 million in cash donations. I wanted to know if that $400 million is in relation to pledges on the Support Jamaica platform or aid from foreign countries. And for Minister Morris Dixon, in your capacity as Education Minister, we've received some reports that schools in affected areas are not being lenient with some of their students who've been affected by the hurricane in terms of losing school supplies or uniforms. These schools are not allowing them onto the compound if they're not in uniform. So I'm asking if you've been made aware of this and if you can speak more about it.
All right.
The figures I've given are a combination of the JDOL and US dollar accounts on the website.
All right. Thank you. In terms of the schools and leniency, we have to be lenient with our children. They have been through a lot. And many of them, they lost their house. They may have their house may have leaked terribly, even if it's in Kingston. And we have to be sensitive to that. We need them to get back to their education. That's what is necessary. I looked over to my permanent secretary and she says she has seen no official reports of it. If you know of someone who was sent home because they don't have uniforms, please let me know so that we can treat with it in the ministry. We have to support our children. Our chief education officer is here. I know her. She's going to go find uniforms. And she's going to call the principal and say, we need to stance we take in the Ministry of Education. And so if you see that happening, let us know officially so that we can deal with it. Right. Sarah, you're such a star. Let's hear the question this week.
Good morning, everybody. I am with 18 Degrees North, Zara Burton, and I have 5 questions. The first one is regarding Prime Minister Andrew Holness. Last week, he said in a cabinet meeting that he was about to go to, there would be discussion of allocation of expenditures, and that Minister Tufton had put in quite a hefty bill, and you said under your breath as well that you also had your portion. I wanted to know if we could get a breakdown by ministry at this stage of the game, what the allocation of expenditures was, and so what each ministry is working with. 2, as journalists and members of the public, it is particularly difficult sometimes to get information on expenditures and revenues coming in a timely manner. It's something we've complained about over and over again. The ATI Act has not yet been amended, even though we've been asking for years about it. I wanted to know if under this situation with Mellisa, there are some sections of that act, specifically 2 things that jump out at me. The government agencies have a way of often saying that this is commercially sensitive information that they can't give out. 2, they often say, especially during COVID, for instance, when you ask for contracts from donors with COVID vaccines, that information is not available, or a legal opinion is being sought as to whether that information can be made available because it is in the Act and exemptions in the Act related to foreign relations, if it would compromise anything related to confidential information from international partners. We, I think, as members of the public, would want those items relaxed in the Act, the ATI Act, so that we can, in fact, get the information without those exemptions being considered for the purpose of this recovery and for accountability.
All right. I'll come to ATI separately when you're finished, yes.
Okay.
All right, so that's number 2.
Number 3, in terms of the IC Act, QCA database, that also has not been made public for some time now, some years. They also went to the Oversight Committee in Parliament.
All right, go ahead, finish your question. Finish your question.
Oversight Committee in Parliament to speak about the idea that there's a particular section of the IC Act which bars them from giving the QCA database on a quarterly basis as they used to do. If anything can be done to relax that, any kind of emergency legislation that can come to the fore so that that can be relaxed, so that the QCA database can continue to be published, especially during the Hurricane Mellisa period. That's 3. The 4th thing, you mentioned the temporary housing, and I wanted to know what kind of quotations and for what kind of housing are you considering at this stage? I realized that you said there are quotations being sought, and I also wanted to know, as a part B to that question, I know you mentioned the churches for the National Prayer Day. I wanted to know if the churches have also been approached about opening up maybe some of the dormitories they have for missionaries to house some of the people that are in fact without shelter. 5, the United States yesterday gave an additional US $10 million worth of aid. 22 million in total is the amount now. I just wanted to understand, because I was reading UPCO, and one of the complaints in that jurisdiction, I realize it's a totally different situation in that Puerto Rico is tied to the US, but one of the complaints in that situation was that the United States mainland contractors got most of the contracts. Just asking if in the US case, if there was any kind of stipulation that any US contractors would have to be hired in order to get this aid, anything like that that you could communicate with us, as well as any other international donor partner that may have made those kinds of indications.
All right, thank you for your questions. That was quite extensive. Some I can answer, some I cannot at this point. All right, in terms of allocation of expenditure, what we would have done was each entity would have gone to cabinet and given their initial assessment of damage. And so agriculture would do it, education would. But none of us have finalized damage. And so what we would have done was go and give our indicative amount. So that was what would have been discussed. So there's been no full allocations as yet to us. Because what the Ministry of Finance has to do, you can think about it. Every single one of us is going with this big bill. Every ministry is. And every ministry has been affected. And so what has to happen is the Ministry of Finance has to figure out how much money it actually has, and then look at the requests that are coming in and then make decisions. It will say, I see you have asked for 2 million, but based on what we have and the need to share it, we can only give you 1. Can you work within this one? So it's a process that happens, and we're in the very early parts of that. My official numbers have not gone in because we've not finished our full assessment of our schools. And so when that happens, it will go in. But, you know, no full allocations have been made yet. In terms of information on expenditure in a timely manner, you were talking about the Access to Information Act. That is something that I think we have committed to reviewing and doing a joint select committee where everybody in the media can come and make their submissions, because that piece of legislation needs to be looked at in its totality. And so that's a commitment that has already been made. And as we move past this emergency phase, I know we'll start looking at that. Can't speak to the IC Act, but I have purview over the Access to Information one, and so I speak on that one. In terms of temporary housing, we're looking at all options that are available to us. Obviously, you do your initial, you look at your initial stuff, who is out there, who has things. There are people who will call you all the time saying, look at that solution. They've just really been looking at it. But we're going to have some kind of procurement mechanism, because we can't just choose one, oh, we like you. That's not how things work with this administration. You have to go through a procurement process that's very open. Obviously, it's emergency rules we're using. But just because it's emergency rules doesn't mean it's a free-for-all. Emergency rules still indicate we need value for money. And so that's the way we're looking at it. And as we get more refined, we'll give you more information. Churches using their spaces as dormitories. We really encourage the church to do as much as they can. And there is a committee led by Minister Grange on that, and they're looking at how they can support more broadly. In terms of the aid from the US, we're very, very happy to get that visit yesterday from the Undersecretary and the commitment of $10 more million in aid. I know we have to use US contractors as a part of that. This is aid that's being provided to us, and we've been very grateful for the aid, and I haven't seen it in any other jurisdiction either. All right.
Just to make a point, please, sorry to interrupt you, Minister. The idea that the ATI Act will be reviewed, I was trying to say with the IC Act and the ATI Act, if in the same way that we've had to essentially activate emergency rules around procurement, I was wondering if there could be some emergency legislation regarding the ATI Act and the IC Act that is presented to the Parliament for discussion, right, to relax some of the rules around it. That's all I'm saying.
Okay, well, we're really focused on relief right now, and obviously as things emerge and as questions are asked, we do explore them and see if it is a possibility. But right now, the key thing for us really is getting food to people and getting shelter to people. And legislative changes are important, but that's not been the focus right now for us.
Good morning, everyone. Hello. Katie Power, NCUFM News. I have 2 questions.
Did you hear that? NCUFM News.
Yes.
It's always nice to have the non-traditional ones here with us.
Yes, so this is regarding education.
Sure.
Are there any considerations for extending the school year? And what would that look like? And also, could you say if there are any specific international aid coming in specifically for, rebuilding schools and so forth?
All right. Thank you for that question in terms of extending the school year. As you know, it is a requirement that we have a particular number of teaching days, right, in each term. And so that's obviously been affected by the hurricane. We don't make those decisions without consulting. So we do have to do our consultations across the system. Some of the children do need a mental break. So they do need their holidays, and our teachers need the holidays to do it in a collaborative manner. What I'm most concerned about are our children who have exams. So those who are doing PEP, those who have CSEC and CAPE. And so we're going to have to work through how we can give additional support, even in the holidays, for those children. So that's a very important consideration for us. And your last question?
International aid specifically.
Right, specifically for education. There are some entities that are looking at education now. Remember, most of them would have been about the immediate need. So they're looking at a relief effort, getting food to people, getting quick pieces of shelter, things that can be used for shelter. So that's been the focus. Right now we're moving into the recovery phase, which is where we get back going, you get your utilities stood up and you can go back to school. And so we're now starting to ask donors for things. And as we do our assessment, it becomes clear what we need. UNICEF has committed some, said for example, they could get us really heavy duty tents if you need to have school in those facilities. So we have that. And as we get the assessments on the schools, we're going to go to the international community and ask for direct support for our schools so that they can be up and running more quickly.
Thank you.
Thank you, Madam NCU. All right,
I
so
have one more question.
all right, this is the last one because we do have to
last one
close.
from me, yes.
Last one for the day. Yes.
Okay. This one is for Minister Mackenzie.
All right.
It's just to get an update on the National Cleanup Campaign, when it will be launched, what it will look like.
All right, Minister.
The final details of the national cleanup is being worked on. There are a number of agencies that will participate. Cabinet gave its approval yesterday, so by next week I'll be rolling out the full details of the cleanup exercise across the country.
All right, thank you very much, Minister. I think we are at the end of today's press briefing. As I said, we are planning another one, and we will put out additional updates as they become available on the hurricane. And we're expecting to do another one of these on Thursday morning. We do have cabinet that day, so we may have to shift it Friday, but we will send out the advisory early enough so that you know when the next one will be. And if you don't hear from me, there's always Senator Morgan, who is my surrogate on radio and all over and giving the information also. So we will be out there getting information to you, and I know Minister Vaz does quite a bit of that too. And so as we end again, we end always with a sense of hope. And today we got a lot of hope, especially when you heard from JPS today. And we're so grateful to you. And as I've been going around, you had issues with service. And Flo and Digicel, I see you working. You're working really hard, and we're seeing it getting better and better. And so we thank you. And then on the water side, to be able to get to 85% by tomorrow is a big deal. And so there's a lot of work being done by a lot of people who are also affected by this hurricane, and all we can say is thank you, thank you, thank you on this Remembrance Day, as we remember those who fought so bravely for our country. We also remember those who we lost during this hurricane. 45 special people. They were special to their families, they were special to their friends, and they're no longer with us. And that's a pain that we're going to feel for a long time. And so as we close out today, we close out by again praying for them, praying for their families, praying for all those in Jamaica that have been affected by this hurricane or who are hurting for whatever reason. We pray for them. And we ask that God will continue to bless this country, bless our utility companies to continue the work that they're doing, and bless all of the people who are doing the work to get us back up and running. And so as we close today, as always, we ask that God bless every Jamaican and God continue to bless this beautiful country that we call Jamaica, land we love. Thank you.